We got some Jonnu Smith updates to go over to start off today's show. Adam Schefter's flip-flopping. He's going back and forth all over the place because he dropped the initial tweet end of last week saying Steelers, Dolphins, having conversations about a Jonnu Smith trade, right? And then things started to back off a little bit with the Jonnu Smith, the Steelers stuff. And then yesterday, Adam Schefter tweets out right before I started yesterday's show that Steelers are completely back in on Jonnu Smith. And he goes on to Rothman and Ice's radio show and thinks it's probably not likely that the Steelers trade for Jonnu Smith. So what is it? What's going on? He's not saying that we're not having conversations, that his tweet that came out last night or, in the evening yesterday isn't accurate. Conversations are picking back up. They're having dialogue again, but he thinks it's probably not likely. They've had some conversations, he says. I don't get the sense it's heated or imminent, but it's been a feeling out process. Then I was told Pittsburgh wasn't doing it. Like I said, Schefter tweeted out Steelers, Dolphins having legit conversations, Jonnu Smith, and then it seems like both sides went their separate ways. And then Schefter tweets out Steelers back in last night. Now he's saying probably not happening. But yesterday, Donald Parham Jr., one of their tight ends, tore his Achilles, and then there were more conversations with Jonnu Smith. I don't know that the two were necessarily related, but if you lose a tight end to a season-ending torn Achilles, it certainly doesn't hurt to inquire about the availability of Jonnu Smith. Could he still be traded to Pittsburgh? Yes. Do I think it's likely? Probably not, but they are checking into it. I would say yes. The Jonnu Smith conversations picking back up and Donald Parham tearing his Achilles are definitely related. Because, yes, Adam Schefter is accurate. Steelers tight end Donald Parham Jr. suffered a torn Achilles during today's OTAs, which was yesterday's OTAs, now is likely to end his 2025 season. Yeah, I think they are directly related, honestly. Like, you can't tell me that Steelers are having preliminary talks about Jonnu Smith, or at least there's conversations happening between them and Miami about a Jonnu Smith trade. And then Steelers are out of it, or maybe both sides are out of it, or, it just comes to a point where it doesn't seem like the trade's happening. No more conversations are happening anymore throughout last weekend, right? And then all of a sudden, Donald Parham gets injured yesterday, and the Steelers are back in. Come on. Put two and two together. Common sense. I've been talking about having common sense on this show for the last couple episodes, right? Like, let's just have some common sense. The Steelers are down a tight end. Jonnu Smith has a connection to Arthur Smith. Yeah, I think that's why the talks started picking back up. Now, the likelihood of it happening, Schefter's saying, don't get your hopes up here. I'm sorry, I was getting my hopes up a little bit. I really was. Especially considering the fact, too, that we're bringing in Gabe Davis, who, if we do eventually sign, is only going to cost us a vet min. We can afford to sign a Gabe Davis, trade for Jonnu Smith, hell, even sign an Amari Cooper, sign Aaron Rodgers, sign TJ Watt to the extension. We could do so much. There's a lot out there talking about the Steelers' cap flexibility for the rest of this offseason and how they actually do have to spend some money to hit a threshold, or if they don't, it's going to hurt them for the next couple seasons, or at least next season. So there's money out there for the Steelers to spend, and there's moves that the Steelers could be making. And I'll say it again, even though we could roll our eyes about us bringing in Jonnu Smith and how Arthur Smith and Jonnu Smith have this connection, and maybe it's a little bit, the connection's a little bit too much, or at least in their history, it was overtaking some other things that Arthur Smith should have been doing on offense, like getting the ball to Kyle Pitts more. But Jonnu Smith is a legit good player. He would be a nice addition to this Steelers team, especially now that we are down a tight end. Not saying that Donald Parham would have made a great difference on this team. He was nice insurance. He was a nice upside play, a nice addition whenever we picked him up when the offseason started. But, I mean, if you're talking about adding to the tight end room, Jonnu Smith is like a marquee name. That's a big name. I know we want to get Darnell Washington the ball more no matter what. That's whether or not we bring in Jonnu Smith or whether or not Donald Parham was going to be injured or not, going to be available for this season or not. Anyway, we want Darnell Washington getting the ball more. We want him to get more snaps. But, I mean, adding a Jonnu Smith, that ain't going to hurt, man. It's like I said, with this Steelers offense, having too many good weapons, having too many good pieces, having too many guys that you could get the ball, I'll take it, man. It's been a while that we could say that about a Steelers offense. So if we could bring in Jonnu Smith, if we could sign Gabe Davis, sign Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, I'm for it. I don't think we're gonna go overboard with the additions. It's probably gonna only be one of these guys, potentially two, because I do think we really like Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin and want to give them a chance for 2025. But yeah, bummer for Donald Parham. I liked when we brought him in because that was another low risk, high reward type of move. He's got upside, got size, never really completely worked out for him with the Chargers. Then he jumped to the Broncos. He was just chilling there on their practice squad. But we know him more from Madden. Like, he's a big-time Madden player because of his size. He's a glitch in Ultimate Team depending on what card he gets. If he gets a highly rated card, depending on, like, what season or what time the game is in. A lot of people are rocking with him. A lot of people have him on their roster and are just glitching with him, throwing up the ball and doing high-pointed catches and stuff like that. Again, he hasn't really been able to translate that type of stuff into real life, but still, not a bad guy to have as your third tight end going into the season, third or fourth tight end going into the season. Unfortunately for him, he won't be seeing this season. He's just going to be chilling, trying to recover from this Achilles. Definitely bummer of an injury, though. You spend all that time in the offseason trying to get ready. You get excited. You're on a new team, and then it just ends like that in OTAs. So that sucks. Steelers did make another move today, or was it yesterday? Today? It might have been late yesterday. I can't remember. Over the last 24 hours, the Steelers did make a move, though. They're signing safety Quindell Johnson per his agency. So this actually is before the Steelers designate Donald Parham to IR or do anything with him, because we had an extra roster spot chilling there waiting for Aaron Rodgers. So now we're at full capacity, but there's still another thing that needs to be done with Donald Parham, some type of designation. So that's going to open up the spot for Aaron Rodgers for whenever he decides to join the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah, this is not really a signing to get too excited about. Didn't really know who he was until doing some research after the transaction happened. He came into the league 2023, was an undrafted rookie free agent, appeared in 9 games in his rookie year for the Chicago Bears, and had an interception. But that interception came in garbage time when the Bears were down 41-3 against the Chiefs. And that pick did not happen with Patrick Mahomes. He was sitting on the sidelines, protecting himself from potential injury because the score was 41-3. And Blaine Gabbert was the quarterback. So that pick came off of Blaine Gabbert. And then 2024 was just bouncing around the league, like different practice squads. The 3 different teams he's been on was the Bears. The Rams initially actually picked him up coming out of the draft in 2023, but went Rams, Bears, most recently with the 49ers, but was available. Steelers picked him up and really don't have any expectations. Most likely he's going to be getting cut. I think at this point for the Steelers, he's just an OTA body. He's a camp body to get reps in case they want to give like Minkah Fitzpatrick or some of these other veterans we have at safety like a day off. That would be my best guess on this situation, why we brought in Quindell Johnson. Because we got Minkah, Deshaun Elliott, Juan Thornhill, Miles Killebrew right there. That's 4 automatic makes to make this team. between Minka, Elliott, Thornhill, Miles Killebrew, and we don't really do the 5 safety thing. And if you're talking about a 5th safety potentially making it, it's going to be one of those hybrid guys like Sebastian Castro. So, and yeah, he's got, I would say, the upper hand over a guy like Quindell Johnson that we're bringing in right now in the middle of these voluntary OTAs. Because Sebastian Castro was an undrafted rookie free agent, really productive at Iowa. A lot of people are high on him. So, like, it's going to be tough for Quindell Johnson to be making this team. But a move that happened nonetheless, and we're sitting here June 4th. Not much is going on, so I thought it would be something appropriate to react to and to touch on for today's show. But let's get to the main thing I wanted to discuss, and that is Broderick Jones. Because there's a lot of reports that are floating out there about Broderick Jones, and all of them are positive. There's not one negative report about Broderick Jones this offseason. I got them listed here. I got about like 6 headlines listed that I've been seeing on Broderick Jones. And these first 2 are coming from him directly. He was talking about the transition, or the transition these first couple seasons for him of going from left tackle, which he played at Georgia, to right tackle, and then last year they tried to make him a swing tackle. He said it was kind of funky. It was kind of awkward for him. But he thinks this move to left tackle was going to be a really big boost to his game. So those were the 2 headlines from Broderick Jones that I saw, and how he's reacting to being moved to left tackle. He thought last year it was kind of funky and what they were trying to do, make him swing tackle and all that type of stuff. And he knew going into this offseason that he was going to be left tackle. I mean, Dan Moore goes to the Titans. There's really not another guy on our roster that is fit to be our starting left tackle for 2025. So it makes sense we're moving Broderick from right tackle back to his rightful position at left tackle and what he played at college. And he thinks it's going to be a big boost to his game. It's where he's more comfortable. His teammates, Zach Frazier, here's what he had to say about Broderick. Says he seems more comfortable at left tackle. Darnell Washington, who was Broderick Jones' teammate at Georgia, says Broderick is feeling his mojo again. He looks like his old self going back to left tackle. Nick Herbig, a guy that Broderick Jones has to face in practice. Nick Herbig is, Steelers edge rusher on defense. Feels like Broderick Jones is a natural left tackle. So there's more comments from his teammates. And this is the last one here, actually. Mason Rudolph. So 4 comments from his teammates saying, like, yeah, Broderick, he looks legit at left tackle. This is, if you read between the lines, they're kind of saying, like, yeah, this is where he was meant to play. This is kind of where he always should have been. But Mason Rudolph, and this is, I guess, aside from just what he's seeing on the field, he thinks Broderick Jones is becoming more vocal, becoming more of a leader. I'm sure that goes hand in hand with him going back to his rightful position, right? And, going into his 3rd year. But, yeah, now he's got a confidence of, like, yeah, Steelers actually really believe in me now. They're letting me pick this one position or be at this one position, and it's the one that I've played my whole career in college and what I was drafted to play. Not only that, but he's also slimmed down and he's looking more agile. Goes from 325 to 305. His full quote on his decision to do that says, I wanted to come back a little bit leaner because it gives me a chance to gain weight going into training camp and throughout the season instead of coming back heavy and then having to lose the weight just to gain it back. It's just a hard process. I just wanted to focus on coming back at a good enough weight to where I can maintain, but also gain if I have to. It's just funny, like, reading all this stuff and, like, looking through all these reports like this. These are all reports that have come out on Broderick over the last, like, week and a half. And you see there's a consistent theme through all of them. And it's different teammates talking about him. It's Broderick Jones talking about himself and how much more comfortable he is going back to left tackle and just it's where he's supposed to be. Losing weight, taking this offseason serious, being motivated, all that stuff. It's almost like it's almost like we should have had Broderick Jones taking all the reps at left tackle to begin with. Especially last year. after we drafted Troy Fautanu and made it clear that Troy was going to be playing right tackle. I thought it was a great opportunity for us to say, let's not play this game of what position are you playing with Broderick Jones? Like, let's not do this. Let's not have uncertainty. Let's say, listen, we drafted you to be our franchise left tackle. First year, out of necessity in a way, we had to have you play right tackle in the middle of the season and be our starter there because of the whole Chooks catastrophe. But now's an opportunity after we drafted Troy Fautanu, and we've clearly said after drafting Troy that he's going to be our right tackle for the future. Let's just move you over to left and have you get all the reps in the offseason, do all that stuff at left, and make it a competition between you and Dan Moore. Dan Moore's most likely in the last year of his contract, and may the best man win. If Dan Moore wins out, whatever, you're getting your work at left tackle, your rightful position, the one that you're going to be playing for us long term, as opposed to playing both sides, doing swing tackle, competing with Troy Fautanu at right tackle. Like it's just all over the place. All over the place. So I'm not going to be too critical about it, like too critical. I feel like that should have been the Steelers' plan, and it wasn't. But reality set in when Troy Fautanu got hurt in preseason, and then he got hurt after he came back from preseason in week 2 of the regular season. And out of necessity, we had to start Broderick Jones over at right tackle anyway. So, like, I can't be too critical on it. Like, this is just the nature of the NFL. You do have to, in a way, be versatile on that offensive line and be able to play multiple positions and just do what's best for the team. And Broderick didn't help himself either at times. Like, I feel like he could have played better. But I don't think the Steelers and how they've handled Broderick Jones or how they handled Kevin Dotson back in the day is helping out the player either in these scenarios. Because remember with Kevin Dotson, he actually said, yeah, when he was a rookie, he went on me and Moses' podcast, and we asked him, like, what position do you prefer playing? And he said right guard. Like, that's where I'm most comfortable. That's where I'm most dominant. That's where I'm at the best. And we had an opportunity, I believe, after his rookie year to move him over to left guard because David DeCastro retired. But he was playing left guard. We had a chance to move him back over to right guard because there was an opening. David DeCastro retired. But we kept him at left guard and had Trey Turner playing at right guard, a guy that we signed in the middle of the offseason for like $3 million. And you knew he was only going to be a 1-year rental. We had him playing at right guard over Dotson, whereas like that's Dotson's position. It like makes you scratch your head. Why didn't we have Dotson over at right guard and then fill left guard with some other guy that was going to be a 1-year rental? Whether it was going to be Trey Turner or not, it doesn't matter. It's like, why not invest in your young players and put them at the rightful position and the position you feel like they could be the best at for the long term, as opposed to just trying to fill in the gaps and focus only solely on the here and now. But even at that, with Dotson, it didn't even make sense in the here and now to have him at left guard because there was still an opening at right guard. Unless I do maybe vaguely remember we were holding out hope, or we didn't know exactly what DeCastro was going to do that offseason. I think he retired. He ended up retiring later than we thought. He made a decision. I don't know. I don't think there were high expectations for DeCastro to retire. Like it was pretty quiet, and then it happened. So you know what? Maybe that's another scenario I shouldn't be. I'm not going to be. Maybe I won't be too critical about because maybe Dotson in his second year was taking a lot of snaps at left guard, and we were waiting for DeCastro. But anyway, either way, like, man, it's like that decision happens. You see DeCastro's retiring, like, move Dotson over to his spot. I'm sure he's been clear with the coaching staff. Like, he said it on a podcast. I'm sure it's well known in the locker room within the organization that Dotson prefers right guard too. Because if fans know about it, if random people, if he's making that announcement on an interview, I'm sure, it's people's job to know that. Like guys like Omar Khan, guys like on the Steelers coaching staff, Dotson's O-line coach, Mike Tomlin. So, like, yeah, we should have played Dotson over at right guard because it's funny, as Dotson played out his career here, and we eventually trade him. We replace Dotson. We make draft picks. We sign guys to replace Dotson, and he becomes expendable. We trade him over to the Rams. He becomes one of the best right guards in the league because they put him over at right guard. So basically what I'm saying with Broderick Jones is let's not do that again. Can we not? And we're not going to because we let Dan Moore walk. Broderick Jones is over at left tackle. It's just like looking back on last year, it's like we had an opportunity not to do what we did with Dotson. We had an opportunity to have Broderick over at left tackle, take snaps solely at left tackle, and say to ourselves and say to him, this is your position. This is the only spot we want you to take reps at. This is where we want you to get most comfortable at. But instead, we were doing the swing tackle stuff and having being like kind of backup left tackle and competing with Dan Moore and competing with Fautano at the same time. It's like, how are you doing him any justice? How are you doing him any favors and really trying to get him off on the right foot for his young NFL career? And it's a guy you invested heavily in. So you would think you would want everything to be aligned and everything to be a good circumstance, as good of a circumstance for that guy as possible, right? Your first round pick. And, you know, you could have complaints about Kenny Pickett. I mean, Terry Bradshaw, we talked about that last week, him saying that the Steelers didn't really do Kenny Pickett right in his first couple of seasons here and what they surrounded him with. And, you know, we could say the same thing about Broderick. We could say the same thing about a lot of these different guys that were drafting early on offense and just the offense in general. How about that? Just the offense in general over the last like 2 or 3, basically ever since Ben retired, or even when Ben was here his last season with us having Matt Canada here. Like, we've botched up, I think, a lot of different things on offense. And hopefully things start turning right here, and as Broderick Jones going over to left tackle is going to be a sign of good things to come. And like Broderick's got to live up to, because there is uncertainty there. He's going to be a big part of how well this offensive line does, because the other 4 pieces we feel pretty good about with Sayamalu, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, and Fautano, even though haven't really seen a full sample size of Fautano, but when he was in there last year, he was pretty dominant. So we feel pretty confident in those 4 other pieces. A lot rides on how Broderick does over at left tackle. I get why people could have their concerns. I honestly don't really have a great rebuttal for those concerns, because Broderick has been up and down throughout his career. He looked best his rookie year, but then took a step back last year. But then as part of that step back, he was dealing with an injury, and the Steelers were playing him out of position and asking him to do multiple different things as opposed to just focusing on one thing. Yeah, I think there's a case for that. But him getting slimmed down, going from 325 to 305, getting back to his rightful position, being more vocal, being more of a leader, it seems, on offense, I think all that stuff's going to help. And hopefully this is his breakout year and he becomes who we've expected him to be since we drafted him. But that's it for today's show. That is it. Jonnu Smith, we gave an update on that at the top. Donald Parham, unfortunately, injured his Achilles, out for the season. But as I said, I feel like those 2 things happening, it's not a coincidence. I think it goes hand in hand. The talk stopped with the Jonnu Smith trade over the weekend, and then all of a sudden Parham gets the Achilles, out for 2025, and Schefter says the talks pick back up. But now he's saying, like, don't really expect anything to happen. I don't know. We'll just wait and see, just like everything else. And yeah, the new signing with the safety, not really any high hopes there, unfortunately, with all due respect of him making the team. And then, Broderick Jones to finish out the show, and glowing reports, the positive reports that he's been getting. I just wanted to react to that and, give my 2 cents. But that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay chilling. I'll be back tomorrow, 6 p.m. We'll see if Gabe Davis signs. We'll see how the meeting goes. I'm sure we'll react to that. But, have a great rest of your Wednesday, and see you tomorrow. Peace.